I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, February 6th. It's about 7 p.m. Tonight is a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. We are here in Town Hall in room 119. The first item on the agenda is going to get bumped.
Has been withdrawn.
Okay. I'll read the first sentence, the first two sentences, and then we'll move on from there. The first item on the agenda is continuation of business site plan application number 104B as in boy, special permit application number 333, floodstone prevention application number 439, land filling and regrading application number 558, PL 23-145, 1852 Darien 1 LLC, Cloud 10 Smart Wash at 54 Post Road, Boston Post Road. Jeremy.
We received a letter earlier today from Attorney Jay Klein of Carmody Torrance, who has withdrawn the application. So there's no further proceedings on this, and if they wish to come back to the commission in the future, they'll have to reapply.
The rumors the street that have not, the rumor on the street is that they have not heard back from the state of Connecticut yet.
I think there were a number of outstanding issues that they were working on, but state statutes only allow public hearings to remain open for a certain period of time, and
They ran up.
ran up against that. That's correct.
Okay, so that is the end of the public meeting. We're going to go into the general meeting now. The first item on the agenda is mandatory referral number 1-2024 Board of Selectmen Great Island Accessway. The proposal for substantial improvements to town property related to the replacement and widening of the existing entryway driveway between Greens End Road and Great Island Road cul-de-sac to provide for two-way vehicular flow and public access between Rings End Road and the larger Great Island property to the south. The deadline to issue this report is February 22nd. In your packets or online, you received a draft of a report. At our last meeting, we instructed the staff to draft a positive report for this request. I think everything, to me, kind of looks in order. It's pretty straightforward on what we talked about. The second to last paragraph says that the Planning and Zoning Commission acknowledges that it's highly likely there will be subsequent applications and commission reviews for activities on the Great Island property. This could include future mandatory referral reports for leases or substantial improvements, special permit applications, coastal site plan reviews, and or site plan reviews. I think that was a comment we had in our last meeting to add something along those lines. Does anybody have any questions, comments, added, scrivener's errors on this one? Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Adam makes a motion, looking for a second. Mike makes a second. All in favor? Thank you. The Great Island Committee and Public Works and everything, and the Board of Selectmen got their mandatory referral report all set. That doesn't go up to the state or anything, does it?
No, it just goes back to, in this case, it would be Kate Bush and the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, great. The next item on the agenda. Pre-application review under Connecticut General Statutes 7-159B, 1, 16 and 22 Thorndale Circle, and the property shown on Assessor's map number 39 as Lot 9, Hecker Avenue. This is a pre-application review and discussion of proposals to replace 5 existing office buildings with 5 new residential buildings within the Thorndale Circle Office Park. That's the office park, I think that's owned by the Nielsen family, and I see Mr. Nielsen in the crowd. And Jay Klein and
It is
Hennessy.
indeed. Mr. Chairman, may I
You sure
take a
can.
few
You
minutes
can
of your
approach,
time?
you can approach the bench.
And I have to say, it is such a refreshing pleasure to do a live meeting, so thank you so much for doing this. I am excited, and I might be a little rusty, but for the record, I'm William Hennessy. I'm a lawyer in the firm of Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy.
At this point, if I may, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Hennessy, but I should make it clear that for future reference, I'll be recused on this one.
Also, just for future reference, I see at the front cover, part of the application says it's a trauma crow company. If you look at page 2, Trammell Crow is a subsidiary or owned by CBRE. I work for CBRE.
Point taken.
At this point in time, I don't know if I'm going to be recusing myself, but I'll sit on the application and we'll see where it goes. But it's a
That's fine, and this is a pre-application, so we can, well, I think all view it as an educational experience at this juncture.
Thank you.
I'm here with my partner Jay Klein and with Craig Flaherty from Redness and Mead. And we are representing Trammell Crow Company in connection with this. The property, as you know, is owned by the Nielsen family. Trammell Crow has entered into a contract to purchase a portion of what I think is colloquially called the Thorndale Office Park. From Trammell Crow, Mike Adamo is here. He's a senior vice president in charge of development and investment. And his associate and colleague, Nick Desatnik, is also here. And Michael will walk you through the proposal in just a couple of minutes. Jerry Nielsen, as you pointed out, Mr. Alvani is also here. You know, to the extent we need some facts or background, I'm sure Jerry is very, very happy to answer them. So I'd like to begin on behalf of all of us for thanking you for allowing us to come and give you this little pre-application. It's a tool that's very, very useful for applicants like us, since we're in the process of finalizing plans and concepts, hearing back from members of the community who are important, and certainly you're an important part of this whole process, is useful to us before the plan is fully developed. Mr. Ginsberg has told us that a good length of this would be not to exceed 20 minutes, so we aim to please Mr. Ginsberg. We'll do our best. And so tonight our goal is simple. It's to introduce you to the property, to introduce you to Trammell Crow, talk about the concept of the plan that we're shooting to execute, talk to you about a small text change that we think would improve the DOMR text that was approved some years ago, and maybe most importantly, listen to your questions and concerns. As I said, this is just a pre-application. Nothing has been finalized in terms of the design, and of course, nothing has been filed formally with planning and zoning or with anybody else. The goal here, on behalf of Trammell Crow and the Nielsen family, is to make sure whatever is filed is something that the community is comfortable with, and that we are prepared to be able to answer and address concerns that the community broadly has about it. In addition to the staff, which we have obviously been with and spoken to several times about the direction here, we've also met with the chief of police. Chief Anderson he wears two hats. He's not only the chief traffic authority, but he's an abutting neighbor in the case of this application, so he was extra important. We're meeting with you tonight. Next week we have a meeting scheduled with some of the homeowners on Hecker Avenue, which will be most impacted by any development. And that's how we're going to proceed. We're going to go on sort of a talking and listening process. So let me turn for a second to give you a little background before I invite Mr. Adamo up here. And I'm going to use this clicker. I hope these are pre-pandemic batteries. So and is it working?
It's on the ceiling.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't pick up on the screen.
There you go.
Okay, can you see it on the screen? Because I can't. No, I'll just point to things. So just a little orientation. You know where you are here. The Post Road, Thorndale Circle accesses the site, Land Rover dealership, the garden center, the Nielsen Garden Center is in there. The proposal here is not to redevelop the whole park. It's to redevelop a good part of it, but not all of it. What you see bounded there in the green is what we would be proposing to redevelop. In total, the park now contains all 7 office buildings, and we count them this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the ones in the contract. 6, 7, and then the garden center up front. In total, the square footage is, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, all 7 of them, about 140,000 square feet.
Yeah, 150.
150. And in total, the park is about 15 acres, And that includes the portion at the very, I guess that, Craig, I'll ask you, that's the west side. North is this way. So at the very west side, what we think of as the woods, the undeveloped part, which is largely wetlands and the brook runs through it, that's also included in the 15 acres. The proposals that you'll be seeing tonight does not propose any development of that. In fact, the only activity that might be taking place in there might just be some mitigation of overgrowth in the wetlands or trash that's come off of 95. There might be an opportunity to clean up the wetlands and make them function better and be more valuable. So that's the site as it is. You know where the library is, you know where the police station is, you know where the cemetery is across the street. The other neighbors are I-95 and the Land Rover dealership. And of course, there's a collection of very nice single-family homes on the west side along Hacker that also border the site. The site, I guess, is Mr. Mulvaney, somebody like you was in the business, but I would call this a typical 1960s/70s suburban office park. Buildings are of that vintage. The whole park now, because of everything going on in the industry and the age of the building, is at an inflection point. And to my mind, what this application really started about 2020 when Mr. Klein, Mr. Flaherty, and I were before you to discuss modifying the DO zone, the whole properties in the DO zone, to allow for the conversion of these DO properties to become used for multifamily housing. The obvious reason being the market was getting very weak for the purpose that they had been ascribed, commercial office. And the market was strong and the community appetite was strong for appropriately scaled and sized and both in terms of building mass and density multifamily housing. And I think we worked through that very, very well. I know that you will remember that you and Mr. Ginsberg put us through the task of evaluating every single DO property to understand what the impact and effect of that new zone regulation would be. This property was one of those. We examined it. We examined this one the most, and we talked about it the most because it was the largest. And there was this, I think, a keen recognition that it was ripe for redevelopment. At the time we looked at it a complete redevelopment, not the scaled back one like this, but the complete redevelopment of the site, and realized that it would yield about 330,000 square feet maximum of new floor area for residential uses. The DOR-MR, Designed Office Multifamily Residential Zone, the overlay zone, does not give a developer or property owner any more rights to development than they currently have. It just really allows for a conversion of the use from commercial office to residential. So the same basic development rights appertain to a different use, and that's basically it. You control that different use through an overlay zone map change, a site plan approval, and a special permit approval. And that was what's been approved, and that is what is going to be proposed in some form or fashion for this site. As I indicated earlier, the proposal here is for a partial renovation of the office park. So instead of redeveloping all 15 acres, this would be a proposal to overlay the MR piece of the DO on only 11 acres. And instead of redeveloping all 7 office buildings, the proposal will be to redevelop 5 of the office buildings. Michael, this might be a good time for me to ask you to approach and maybe begin by describing your company a bit. I don't think you're going to educate Mr. Mulvaney, but others I'm sure would be interested. And then we can go through the proposal. Sure.
Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Michael Adamo, Senior Vice President with Trammell Crow Company. We are a large development firm, international. We have about 18 offices in the US, focus on everything from life sciences, industrial, office, mixed use, and residential development. I work at the New York office, concentrated on multifamily development. We've been in business for about 75 years. As Mr. Olvani mentioned, we're a part of CBRE, well capitalized through that corporation as well. If you ask the developer what the ideal site for multifamily development is, it's a very well located site on a rectangle. We don't have the benefit of a rectangle here. But it's a unique opportunity, it's a unique location, and it's a great town, and we are really thrilled to be here tonight. We have some representative images here, just kind of different viewpoints for those that I'm sure have driven past or into the office park at any point in the recent past. I'll get into first what Trammell Crow has done recently, more in the Philly metro market, but just giving you a context of some of the quality of the development that we've done. Whitehall in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, 4-story development. Glass House in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we finished about 3 years ago, 319 units. And then most recently, Matson Mill in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. All suburban locales, really spent a lot of time putting together high quality design projects, thought through with lots of amenities, really good living areas, really good common spaces, very functional. Really pay a lot of attention to detail on the design phase to make sure once we get into the ground of construction, it looks as good as it did when we stood before the Planning Commission in each municipality and showed a bunch of pretty renderings. From the start, coming into Darien, we spent a lot of time, touring the market and thinking about contextual architecture. And what could we do here that would blend with what exists, both some of the older buildings downtown, the single-family homes, and then more recently some of the newer projects by Federal Realty in the Corbin District, which look great and have been well received to my knowledge. So we kind of took that precedent in our initial thoughts to design. I mentioned earlier about having a perfectly rectangular site. That was probably the biggest challenge we had coming into this site, thinking about how to put together a rightly scaled development. We have about 11 acres, including the open space preserve. We'll be developing about 9 of those acres on the right, the right-hand side of the screen. And we were balancing, a townhome feel with proximate surface parking, no greater than 3 stories, with a density that was palatable. We came up with 5 3-story buildings, 175 units, 25 of which would be affordable on site.
You're at 175?
Yes. Everything from studio to 2 beds. We tried to create a main street. I don't have a pointer like Bill had, but coming in through Thorndale Circle, we tried to create a main street through out into Hacker Avenue to make it feel as though it was its own neighborhood. That's how we kind of view this townhome style development. Really paid a lot of attention to the fact that there is existing a lot of vegetation and a lot of, it feels different. It doesn't feel that you're, believe it or not, between Boston Post Road and I-95. And so with landscape, with the placement of buildings, the placement of amenities, the placement of parking, we really try to balance that out. I have a couple of closer images, but you can see sort of the main entrance will be off of Thorndale Circle. We located the clubhouse right there, so it's the main focal point. Once you come into the community, we'll have some nice outdoor space, heated swimming pool, pool deck, outdoor grills, in and around the clubhouse. The clubhouse will have everything from co-working space, fitness, and lounge areas for residents to utilize. Over to the west side of the site, adjacent to the preserve, we really beefed up and created some pocket parks that will look great. Some seating areas, lots of vegetation, perhaps a dog park for folks that live within the development to enjoy. I mentioned earlier that parking was a bit of a challenge, but we tried to blend that with a mix of surface parking, which you can obviously see, but then also tuck under parking in each of the buildings, and then some freestanding garages along 95, which will act as a nice buffer from I-95 and just introduce different ways of parking. Some folks would like to have no snow on their cars in the winter and a cool car in the summer. Some folks want to park by their front door, so we thought we'd try to balance the two. This is just a close-up image of the pocket park. There'll be a lot of native plantings that we'll introduce here, respecting the preserve that neighbors us. We'll look to introduce stormwater management in an effective manner so that we can control that on site. And then the last image I think I have here is just a close-up of the clubhouse. Again, you could see some early thoughts on how we would program that, really trying to make that a focal point for folks driving into the community to see what the clubhouse looks like and draw their eye in and really get excited about what's to come. So I'll kind of pause there. I know we said we only had about 20 minutes. I think that's probably the balance of my slides. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Bill, I don't know if you have any closing remarks, but.
Yeah, I just want to point out one
Well,
thing.
let's go with questions
Questions
first. You want to go first, Amy?
A couple of things. Was there any in your design process, in your iterations, you very rarely just pop one out, given any thought to, you have a couple of amenities that are nearby, the Darien Library, the Nielsen Florist, the pass-through of the walk egress easement from Town Hall through the cemetery. Was there any thoughts given to trying to promote the green space closer to those amenities and closer to Hecker Avenue as opposed to tucking it over to 95? And creating more connectivity to the area as opposed to tucking it away as a neighborhood?
I think a lot of the reason we came to the plan that you see today is trying to balance what we wanted to do here with a lot of the challenges as it relates to the setbacks on site. And I think the natural place for the landscaped area is adjacent to the preserve. And it does function to help with stormwater management as well, so that is an additional reason we did locate it there. There will be, heavy landscape along Hecker Avenue. There is today, there will be additional once, if we should be so lucky to go forward on this development, that we'll introduce to make sure that that's a nice, view corridor along Hecker Avenue.
Okay, and then the other questions I have in general are about the scale of the project with regards to 175 units. It just seems to be kind of top tick on the other scale of things that have been done in town. So that's just an observation, and obviously something we would need to dig into further. And then just the other option, if you do want to, who do you envision being your profile of renter? I assume these will be for rent?
They will be for rent, yes. I think it will trend to more of an empty nester crowd. I think there's a fair amount of folks in town that, would enjoy the convenience of renting. They may be looking to sell their home in town, but still have their grandkids nearby.
Then what's the proportion of units in general that are tucked under garages that require a full flight of stairs to get into your unit?
Well, each building will have its own elevator.
As an observation as a realtor, that tends to be a non-starter for that target segment.
Okay.
Just an observation for you.
Thank you.
Mike?
My only question was, as you were describing that Main Street, is that one-way traffic and all your traffic is dumping out onto Hecker, or is that two-way traffic?
It's two-way traffic. The lion's share of the traffic we envision coming out on Thorndale Circle.
Okay. And then what's the approximate size of that open space?
I'm
2.5 acres.
2.5
About
acres.
2.3 acres is what I would call the woods.
Okay.
But that doesn't include, though,
Not the gardens.
The green, it doesn't include the garden area to the adjoining.
And then as I read through the presentation, there was a mention of walking trails. Are those intended to be through the woods, or is that just sort of generally around the park?
It would largely be around the site. We wouldn't introduce anything within the preserve itself.
The preserve is, according to the tax map, is 2.4 acres, right? So then the park that you have there is in addition to that.
That's correct.
Yes.
But you know, like at the high school, they have
Walking trails.
running trails that are through the wetlands, and they've got, part gravel, part mini boards, part, there's a way I think that you could create a more, just an observation.
We should, there is a walking trail now. Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can get out to Hecker through a walking trail at the...
If you go back to your first map, it actually shows it.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk.
Yeah,
Put it by the library, right?
it's in this area
Yeah.
somewhere.
I think there's actually access further down, Bill. If you go back to your first outline, see it
Mm-hmm.
outlined in red? on the left?
That's actually a river.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
that's the brook.
yeah, the walking path is
Yeah,
closer to
there's a path right here.
Yeah.
You can come out. I mean, it's a very, it's like a big sidewalk, made basketball, I think, yeah. We should explore that. That's a great idea. Some of that connectivity would be great. Frankly, I wasn't aware of the connection between the town hall and the.
Yeah, there's
We
an
should get smarter
opportunity
about
there
that. That's-
to integrate it a little bit better to that area and make it more, people that go and from the library and they want to go read their book outside, or they're.
If you want to go over and watch a baseball game here.
Right. They go
Yep.
to different places there.
Yep.
Shake
Okay.
Shack, they walk across, they're, whatever. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all.
And just also, obviously, we would need to dive into, these questions are premature with as far as mitigation on utilities and sewage and drainage and all that happy stuff. Obviously, you didn't do that level of due diligence yet. So I'll table all those conversations.
And to the extent that you have questions or comments or
Yeah.
thoughts, if you could funnel them through
Yeah.
Jerry, because we're in dialogue with him. It helps us plan better, so we appreciate that.
So relative to that, to what she was talking about, is your average size about 1,000 square feet per apartment on average?
roughly, yeah,
So then it's gonna be 175,000 square feet,
somewhere around that. Yeah.
and you're taking out 108, so your net increase is less than 70,000 feet,
Correct.
something like that.
As far as you're talking square footage,
Yeah.
area
Yeah,
ratio?
square footage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more bathrooms.
Yeah.
You know, parking, I forget what the parking is. The
I
parking
mean,
is really close.
the observation that I have as a Realtor is that as every developer comes in to develop products for mixed use, there's a continual, that nobody meets the needs as
Right.
far as, and it's expensive, I get it. Elegant flats that have no stairs, that have elevator access. If anybody really wants to attract that segment, that's what you need to build.
Yeah. Well, to that end,
And
we
I
do.
can appreciate that the numbers might not work for you.
Well, we do have, direct entry units at grade in
Okay.
the buildings, if I can just go back to. So the buildings are planned to have direct entry access, so if you rent an apartment
Yep.
at grade, you can open your door, walk right into your apartment. That will also be a common corridor with an elevator and then obviously
Okay.
stairs, so that if you live on the second or third floor, you just hop into the elevator and you can go in that way as well.
Is the front cover, is this supposed to be one of these buildings?
I believe that was an inspirational image. We have not fully developed the elevations yet, but by the time we do submit a full application, we would have conceptual images to share with you.
Because that just shows the front entries into the building.
It's exactly right. 3 stories, direct entry, flats.
Oh, okay. George?
No, I'll stand.
Adam?
Yeah, looks fine. I mean, my concern was, I think reading it over, you said you weren't planning on many, if any, studio or one-bedroom units?
No, we will have studio through 2 bedrooms, so studio is 1 beds.
Do you know the ratio?
I can follow up with that information.
Just because part of what we look at when we think about diversified housing stock is not just single-family home, multifamily apartments, but also the units of it. And
Sure.
we've seen other applications where they've been exclusively, higher rental units, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, with smaller, 1 bedrooms. And there's not enough, certainly, in town of this sort of single-person studio, 1 bedroom type of unit. So we'd like to see a good mix of that,
Okay.
not just all top-heavy, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, high rental tickets, I think.
Sure.
Would be something we'd like to see. And then the only other question, which seems a little premature, but I noticed when I was kind of driving through it, like it's sort of desolate at nighttime. I went through it the other day at like 5, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
I assume around, I get the buildings are gonna be lit, the roads will be lit, but these are not roads, like municipal roads, they're just kind of private roads, if they're even roads in theory. But you will have adequate lighting sort of around, I'm thinking like in a dog park in the back west, like especially against a preserve like that, that's an area where I think lighting is gonna be more important than you
Yep.
might normally see in a development like this, where we're just looking at pot lightings off the sides of a house or off the sides of a building.
Sure.
Sort of that's it. So I think the lighting will be key because that'll come from like sort of a safety standpoint.
Of course.
So that would be the only other issue I had.
Okay, thank you.
You also have the police right there.
True. That doesn't stop people from getting around down those streets.
That's true.
But at the end of the day, if I'm sure you guys have driven through Avalon, the Avalon project, they have the same kind of street lighting.
Yeah.
This will have a very warm, safe feel to it.
Yeah.
Ms. Barsani, you hit upon one issue. The site's got some challenges. I mean, I-95 is a big challenge as a residential site. So one of the things, and because of the way the street comes in, there's some idiosyncrasies in calculating setbacks. So we've met with staff and said, it doesn't make a lot of sense to apply maybe an extra big rear yard setback to what is essentially an interior lot line. Moving a building far away from trees in a surface parking lot is probably not as high a goal or as valuable as moving a building farther from I-95 or building some garages. These units, these
This
structures over here are
That's gonna be the
garages.
text change?
Yes.
Good.
So can you highlight in quick summary the variances, so to speak, the texture?
We'll talk, Jason, why don't, you're a little more familiar with what exactly.
Let me just ask one quick question. The one piece that's on the bottom to the left where it sticks out, I think that's the river. Do you own the river? There's a new bridge there, it says built in 1993.
Well, you mean the little, let me point to it, just so we're talking, this?
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
it shows
yeah.
up on the tax map and it doesn't have a number on it, but that is a river.
The fee to it is part of our property, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad
I
thing.
don't know
going
either.
over. But it is.
We'd have a kayak launch, but it won't go very
It's
far.
it is.
There you go.
If you didn't know it was water, you might assume it's access for a driveway or
Yeah,
something,
no,
but it's not.
And the only thing to point out, we're talking about this walking path that goes through the woods to Grandma's house, which is town hall where we're sitting at now. It's just wood chips.
Okay,
The Boy Scouts put it, when the town bought it, it's connected to, if it shows up on the tax map, there's another park on the other side, and we bought a house that's in the back of town hall back of town hall. It runs along that, and it's just a bunch of wood chips
okay.
that
But
comes
the
out.
ability to
And
connect,
there's a sign on it.
but the ability to create
Understood.
a connection and a really extensive loop and, because when you get through there, you get to the sidewalks, you could get to the beach, like somebody that really wants to
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know, I just think there's an opportunity there.
I think what she's saying is, we'll give you permission to build the trail through the woods.
That's what I'm hearing.
I mean.
Sounds like we're going for a walk very soon.
I'm not the, clearly, I'm just at.
Yep, no,
But
that's
what
why
we-
we're here.
That's what we did at the high school.
Yeah, okay, good.
Um, Jason.
Jay, can you just quickly?
absolutely.
You touched on the text change at the beginning.
21st
And I
minute,
read the document of where you're gonna do it.
Yeah. Let me just get to. So, Michael spoke about, the unique.
Just state your name for the.
Oh, sorry, Jay Klein, Harmony Law here with the Trammell Crow team. Not a typical lot arrangement here. We've got a couple of rear yards. The most obvious one is to the north at I-95. But these two yards right here are actually rear yards as well. The piece of the property that's adjacent to the office buildings and parking lot that Mr. Nielsen and his family will be retaining. So when we look at how do we lay out buildings properly here, the sense that we got was, the parking lot over here and Interstate 95, not as sensitive as the building, or the homes rather, along Hecker Avenue. So how can we locate more of our buildings towards these less sensitive areas? And in order to do that, we'd have to get some flexibility on the rear yard. We're still exploring options with staff, and Craig and I are looking at, what are the impacts of the text change, but something that would be only permitted, in a DOMR special permit type review that would allow buildings to be located closer to the backyard than any other piece of the property. Again, we are looking at this, holistically. This is Thorndal right here. Two other areas that, we think could, achieve some added flexibility in terms of the rear yard right now. These are some office buildings along Old Kings Highway South. You see some rear yards where there could be potential flexibility if the regulation amendment is adopted. And then similarly, up on the Post Road, one of these buildings is the Freemason property, and then the two office buildings adjacent to it. We're not proposing anything for these properties. This is just an academic exercise. Before anything happened here, they'd have to come to you all, get a map change, get a special permit, get whatever other approvals may be necessary.
Did you look at Tokenique Road?
We did. Yes, so what we're looking at is,
That backs up to the railroad track.
that's the railroad tracks. What our text change would be is just if you're backing up to I-95 or other DO property that's not used, that doesn't have any single family use on it. We didn't want to, cast too wide a net. We think the I-95 is a good place for us to start, so.
What has been your experience, and maybe this is a question for, the discounted rate on a building that is up against 95 versus insulated further away, as far as the noise factor?
We've had success with sound, just beefing up our sound attenuation details.
Through your windows?
Through windows, through insulation, through drywall.
Could you step out of the podium, please?
And it hasn't, been an issue. I've built adjacent to the Long Island Railroad a couple times. We haven't had issues. We, retain sound and consultants that help us to understand what the materiality, the construction methods need to be to mitigate against that. The last thing we want to hear from our residents is that they can hear the trucks going past on 95, so we'll, be pretty focused on mitigating that.
We like Toll Brothers did it in Tarrytown.
Yeah.
They were back up against the railroad tracks.
And those garages that you have in the back, they're lower than your buildings?
Yeah, they're single
story.
Correct.
Okay.
And just on that, the buildings that you're proposing are 3-story. What are the office buildings currently?
I think they're all 3 stories. Or
2.5.
2.5.
Okay. What else? I think we touched on, the big thing was the text change, and that's really just the setbacks. To overlay it, you're taking out 5 office buildings, you're putting in 5 residential buildings, and a clubhouse and a pool.
Yep.
Main Street comes in on Thorndale Circle off the Post Road, goes out on Hecker Avenue. It's
Yep.
two-way directional. We're getting a private park next to the open space in the back.
That's right.
Some greenery along Hecker Avenue. We did approve a while ago. Remember, Jerry, when one of you guys maybe did it, the library's got the right to park in at this property. and we approved a walking path with lights on it off the street. And that's what you're talking about, there's all ballards there. And I think across the street, I think that gets preserved, I'm not really, I don't know exactly where it is.
Is it, yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding it's in the piece of the office park that's not being touched.
Right. And
Just to really make it, an effort to make it a cohesive, integration to the broader area, I think would make a nice, I think the opportunity to make a little bit of an anchor of amenity for that neighborhood would be additive.
Okay, great.
And at the end of the day, Avalon is 189 units, is that right?
That's correct.
So this is a smaller piece of land, but and a smaller total number of unit counts.
Yes,
And this is all stick construction, right?
correct.
And,
Yep.
Didn't Travel Crow used to be Avalon, or vice versa?
A lot of the partners from Trammell Crow spun off to form Avalon Properties, which became Avalon Bay. Yeah,
Great, cool.
yeah. I actually used to work at Avalon 2 years ago, so everybody kind of comes full circle.
Everybody.
Yeah.
did.
Circle of life.
You good?
At this stage,
Yeah, my only other comment is if you are gonna have two-way traffic on Thorndale, are you gonna consider a light at the end of that?
A light at the end of here?
No.
Well, there's an existing
Yeah.
traffic light on Thorndale and Boston Post Road currently.
There is.
not,
No,
when you,
not-
no, there's not. When you go in, you know, right where Nielsen's property is to go in, I'm in that development
There's one-
twice a week. I do
There's one-
Pilates twice a week, and I gotta pull out on the Boston Post Road at 9 o'clock. Sometimes you have to wait there. So now you picture 175 units. There's going to be some degree of the extensive traffic analysis you're gonna need there, for sure.
We're in the midst of the
Yeah,
traffic.
I mean, I know that's all premature, yeah.
Okay. George is passing, Adam's good. You guys have anything else from staff? Okay, so jump in.
Nothing helps us more than to hear comments back, even if it's something that occurs to you next week, so we can think about this as we move forward. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.
We do okay,
Thanks a
Jim?
lot.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
It's a general meeting. The first selectman's here, do you want to see him? He says official.
Yes, actually it was easier.
I didn't realize you just plugged in like that.
Yeah. Worked well.
All right. Number 3, all right, next item on the agenda, deliberations of possible decision regarding the following. The Filling Regrading Application number 557 PL-23-140, Ivan and Adelya I can never pronounce this, I apologize. Kaminsky at 10 Hoyt Court. Proposal to construct additions to the west side of existing single-family residence, construction of new driveway with covered parking areas, construction of a deck, patio, terrace, as well as numerous landscape and retaining walls, perform related site development activities, including the regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management. The public hearing closed on January 23rd, 2024. In your packets, we got a draft resolution for this, dated today. So 0.6 acre site. Questions, comments, scrivener's errors on this one?
Yes, I have something, hold on a second. Can you, the specific, where is the, I'm looking at the highlights as far as the things that we've added, as far as parking they can't be permitted on Hoyt Court, Hoyt Street.
That's number 12.
Yeah, the,
12 and L3 on
fencing-
page 6.
the fencing shall be installed prior to issuance of a CO.
Yeah.
Was there any additional landscaping that was kind of promised, so to speak, with regards to that we should we expand the fencing, or also adherence to the established landscaping plan as well? That's a question I have for everybody. And then there was one other thing as far as the road agreement. I can't seem to find it.
It's page 4, number 18.
18, okay. This goes maybe the applicant to assure. There's a road agreement, okay.
That the property owner and applicant will bear full responsibility for any damage to Hoyt Court.
Yeah. Now, I just want to make sure this is not something that the commission knows that the applicant has submitted a road repair assurance agreement. And that was something that he submitted, but I don't know that that's in fact executed between him and his neighbors. That was something that he was saying, I'd like to give my neighbors assurances. But I don't know the status of what has happened after that. Is that, because right now it was just a blank agreement with no binding parties, or even any parties really. So I'm just curious the status of what that is right now, as if we're going to reference it in our resolution here.
Can't enforce it.
I mean, I like that it does, since we can't have a bond. And then the only other thing is, there have been some applications where we've had somebody act as, that gives periodic reporting, like incident reporting or anything like that.
A site monitor, is that what you mean?
Yeah, is that something that's appropriate here or not? Considering,
We have required that the applicant's engineer or professional engineer at a minimum certify the installation of the stormwater management system on the site. We've also included as a condition of approval that the general contractor meet with staff prior to any on-site work, which, you know, we can sort of lay out a plan for moving things forward in terms of redevelopment of the site.
And Mary.
But as far as a site monitor that is submitting
okay,
reports
so there
to
is
planning and zoning, yeah.
there's periodic touch points, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And it sounds like you've already put that element in already with regards to.
Correct.
Okay.
Part of that is in M as in Mary, and then L 3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
The contact
Okay,
person.
yep.
The contact person.
Yep,
that-
okay,
that came up
okay.
with parklands.
Got it, all right, thank you.
Mike? You good? George?
I'm trying to remember, I think Hoyt Street parking came up. I don't know that we plan to ban it.
No, it's specifically prohibited, I saw that. Prohibited on Hoyt Street and Hoyt Court. Yeah, it's both are listed.
You mean the state
Yes,
doesn't?
yeah,
Okay.
I looked at that as well.
Very good.
That's L.
That's condition L3, correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, what did I want to, I saw it in number 3 at the beginning, an operations and maintenance plan has not been provided, but then later in the resolution, it says it has to be provided, it's just not capitalized. Is that one of the same thing?
It is, yes. So, are you saying in one area we're calling it an operations and maintenance plan, and someplace else we're calling it something else?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. It shows up. Yeah, it shows up on number 3, and it's capitalized, and then it shows up again. It says we're gonna have to have it.
Right, in 3, we note that an operation and maintenance plan has not been provided.
Right.
You're just referring to the capitalization of that?
Yeah, then where does it come up later to say it has to be provided, and it's been put on the land records?
The plan will be filed in our office, and a notice of drainage maintenance plan will be filed in the Darien land records.
What letter is that one?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Correct, that's I.
But you just said drainage maintenance plan, should we call it drainage and
Is that-
operations?
yeah, is that-
Should we scratch operations?
Yeah, that was kind of my question. It says the drainage maintenance program shall be required by the property owner and subsequent owners. So here it's called the drainage maintenance program, and the other spot it's called something different.
Right, that's just the name of our form is the drainage maintenance.
Notice, right, notice of
Form.
drainage maintenance plan. Sometimes when the engineer draws it up, he'll call it an operations.
Right.
Stormwater
Okay.
It's
operations.
effectively the same
It's
thing.
one and the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
The landscaping and fencing plans, they're untitled and undated. Can we get that specified so we know exactly what we're referring to? If he hasn't uploaded that, can we close that loop to make sure that that's memorialized?
At least the date.
The only thing I would say on that is he uploaded that thing in the middle of the meeting, so it's time stamped on the day it
Yeah,
got
then I
uploaded.
just want to make sure
Right.
in our resolution, we know what we're comparing
We
this
can just
to.
write
Finding
the word
A.
uploaded.
Yeah,
So,
uploaded on January
In my
22nd.
business, we call it E-stamp.
Yeah, sure.
That's the same thing. What else do I have? I mean, I'm not a big fan of this application anyway, so I just want to make sure the things that I got into. Like number 14, I don't necessarily not agree with. Number 8, I don't necessarily know if I agree with it. I can hold their feet to the fire. What else? They're definitely required to do that polyurethane barrier. We got that in there. That's great. The general contractor meeting's great. No working on weekends and after 7 p.m. My only thing that popped up on end, number 1I, that's the first reference to the pool. I mean, I know it wasn't in the notice that they're putting in a pool, but it's kind of be hidden.
The pool is indoors.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not even a pool, isn't it?
It's like a-
hot tub jacuzzi, he's in?
Yeah.
It's both. It's both. There's a pool and a hot tub. I just was shocked that it showed up. It was kind of like sort of an afterthought, but he kind of said at the beginning it was his major.
All we're saying is it still requires a permit
Yeah.
in the future.
Do we want to add it to, say, number 1?
Just that we recognize there's going to be a pool there.
Yeah, we could certainly, because I think that's in their material, we could say proposals to construct additions to the west side of the house, an indoor pool, construction of a new driveway.
That's fine by me. It seemed like it was just buried, that's all.
Sure.
At the same time, we don't want to appear to be approving anything that otherwise requires a permit for the pool.
But we want to make it clear,
Mhm.
they've applied for a pool, we're approving the pool, separate building permit for the pool.
Right, because every other house we look at, we know the pool's going to be there, and they need a permit to get the pool. This one, it doesn't say the
We
pool
want to make it
until
clear
page 8.
that's being approved.
It is being approved or not approved?
Part of the plan.
So we're approved, so
It's
they don't
allowed
have
to
to
be
be.
put in, but it has to get a building permit.
All right, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so number 1, the separate zoning permit, building permits will be required for the pool.
Like this thing today, if this thing ever gets approved, we know there's going to be a pool there.
Yeah, okay, I just want to be clear.
Yeah, condition, page 6, condition N, number 1, separate zoning and building permits will be required for the house foundation, the work above the foundation for the residence, and the pool.
Great.
So it just seems contradictory to say that we're approving it, but if that's the process, okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the word pool never shows up in the first 5 pages. Okay.
So we're amending 1 to say pool?
You gonna add the word pool to number 1?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. With that said, I would entertain a motion to approve as edited. Amy makes the motion, Mike makes the second, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, all those opposed?
Steve?
1, 4-1. Okay.
I hate to go backwards, I'm not usually that technical. In number 1, do you want to add the fact that they showed a detached carport as well?
That makes sense. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, it's not a big deal, but at least we're aware because someone, okay.
So it doesn't turn into a
an argument
I
about it.
don't think the detached carport never word comes up here at all, right?
Yeah, it's just a basic
It's on the
covering.
plans,
Right.
it's that, it's in the coverage ratio.
And the tanks underneath it, that'll be fun to maintain.
Yeah, but it's tanks are also in driveways and parking lots. There's a $1 million gallon tank in the parking lot at Federal Realty, right?
Thank you.
All right, next item. Land filling and regrading application number 559 PL 23-186, Thomas and Katherine Meyerer at 12 McLaren Road. Proposed to construct a new pool patio area on the eastern portion of the property, perform related site zone activities, include regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. The hearing closed on January 30th. In our packets, we got a draft resolution for this one too. It's dated again today. Questions, commoners, scriveners, errors on this one?
Just one question, there's a reference to an automatic swimming pool coverage proposed, eliminating the building code requirement for pool safety fence on the property. I know that is today the code, but that might change. Do we need to make any reference to that probability that, or option that might happen, or is that recovered because that's what code is today?
Yeah, maybe you could add the word current building code requirement or something to make it clear that.
Theoretically, all building codes could change in the future.
Yeah, that's
So
true,
it's like
I'm
we
overthinking it,
put
okay,
everything.
never mind.
And
Okay.
certain things are gonna get grandfathered.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, that one usually doesn't. Pool
No.
safety usually does not.
Okay.
That was my one question on this one.
Thank you, good?
I'm good.
Gentlemen?
Okay.
Good. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Adam makes a motion. George makes a second. All in favor? 4-5-0. Okay. Next item up for bid. Land filling and regrading application number 561 PL 23-185, Eduardo and Vanessa Sammame at 220 Mansfield Avenue. Construction of a new pool patio area on the eastern portion of the property. Performing related site development activities, including the regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. Hearing closed on January 30, 2024. Excuse me, in your packets or online, there's another proposal for this one, another resolution for this one. Again, remember, this is an after-the-fact resolution. It states it later in the document, I think on page 2, number 2. The pool's in, and we're doing this because they did additional regrading in the back.
Yeah.
Nothing jumped off the page on me on this one. Anybody, any questions, comments, scriveners, errors on this one? George is good, Mike's good.
No, they went back to the PC and got approval, so.
And then, yeah, this
That's
one,
it.
already done, right? Okay. Motion to approve as submitted, Mike makes a motion for a second, Amy makes a second, all in favor? 5-0. Okay, that's that. Next item, that's the end of our resolutions. Next item on here is deliberations only on the following. Coastal site plan review number 379, flood demonstration application number 441, land filling and regrading application number 562, site plan application number 311, PL-23-191, 10 up Darien, Great Island Accessway, comma 0 Great Island Road. Proposal to replace and widen the existing entryway / driveway between Rings End Road and Great Island Road cul-de-sac to provide for a two-way vehicular flow and public access between Rings End Road and the larger Great Island property to the south and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The work includes the addition of a sidewalk, landscaping, lighting, drainage, and other ancillary improvements. The hearing closed on January 30, 2024. Okay, so this is the road that we kind of sort of knew we had to deal with 2 years ago when we started looking at the property. They're going to widen it on both sides, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, put a sidewalk on the right-hand side. I think the idea is to reuse the existing old granite curbing on the left. There's gutters on the left and the right that have, I found out later, they're not cobblestones, they're called river rocks, is what the elegant name is. They might use those rocks someplace, but they're not going to necessarily use them at this juncture. We're going to redo the pillars in the front. We're going to repurpose and reuse the pillars in the front by, I think, taking them in the middle and going and put them on the outside and moving them. Put in some, what I would call rumble strips or traffic calming issues. Up lights on the pillars in the front. 4 or 5 lampposts going from the entranceway all the way to the cul-de-sac area? Pretty sure it's 5 too.
Yeah, there was the ones on the pillars that aren't posts.
Those are uplights.
And then,
Those are
yeah.
the uplights.
And
Those are
then
uplights. And then
1,
5.
2, 3, 4, 5.
And then the lights are supposed to be residential style in nature, getting the inspiration from what's already on the property. The application says those things are going to be 8 feet tall, which is more in line with residential nature. What else? There's a bunch of landscaping that has to go there. They have to provide curb cuts to the sites that adjoin it, which is 2 lots that don't have curb cuts today, and they have to have other 2 curb cuts tomorrow if they're so deemed necessary by the eventual developers or owners or buyers of those 2 lots, which I think it's 5, 6, and 7. I don't know if it's 5 and 6 or 7 and 8.
7 and 8.
7 and 8, those are the 2. Both of those would have, they have front entrances on either Great Island Road and or along the point, because one's a flag lot. What else? There's some rock walls going to go in. The rock walls on either side are supposed to emulate what's on the island already. The only thing that I would like to add relative to some of these items, it's in front of architecture review. Did they get in and out of architecture review? Did they get a letter yet?
They're working on a letter.
Okay. So we're not going to see this again we're not going to see the draft of the resolution until next week.
You will see a draft resolution next week, and you'll probably see the ARB approval letter next week.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to say relative to that, I mean, I've been on the commission for, I don't know, a little while now. We've never dictated what walls are made out of, what sidewalks are made out of. We look at lights that are or designed or submitted. Sometimes if there's a tear sheet on in the plans. The one thing I don't want to do, and I don't know if you guys can release the ARB, I don't want to tie anybody down to a specific model number of a light that's coming from France. And we don't know the cost of it. We got feedback like that from the developers of, Darien Commons, that certain things were back ordered and they couldn't, get it done. Like windows got back ordered and long lead times. I mean, just as a dumb item that's connected, they couldn't get Gregory's coffee open because they couldn't get the coffee machines. It was espresso machines like back ordered in Germany, so that delayed the whole project. But we knew this was coming. I think they designed a nice plan. I think it seems like they're going above and beyond. And I also think that some decisions later are going to land up falling in the hands of the Great Island Committee. This application's applicant is the Public Works Department, right? Because he builds roads. Okay, that's my input in the speech. George, you have thoughts on this one?
I'm good, I think it's well thought out.
Adam?
Yeah, I don't have anything. My only concern is where the curb cuts go out to 7 and 8 was kind of in flux. And we generally reference a finalized site plan in the findings. So have they just worked that out, right? Because if we say it's got to be here, and then they come back and the developer says, well, we'd rather move it 5 feet over, unfortunately, they can't do it, so they can put no curb cuts in, and they can come back and the developer can come and curb cut them in, or that they can finalize it. But that was the only part that seemed very much like, we might shift it over a little bit here or there. So I don't know how we account for that in the findings, but other than that, it seemed fine. I didn't necessarily hate the idea of one additional storm drain on the, call it the downhill sloping road towards Rings End Bridge. But Joe said it wasn't necessary. I mean, when it rains, you do see water coming down that in a good clip, so I don't know if it couldn't hurt. But that I thought was kind of minor. My only concern was really the curb cuts.
I think relative to curb cuts, the curb cuts will get placed when the house gets put on. If you remember when we did, I'm gonna say the address is 100, it's either 100 or it's 99, Long Neck Point. We made a move to curb cut on that house that
Yeah.
the Ziegler Family Trust.
95.
95. So that, you know, if
But to
You buy the
Adam's
house, you
point,
want the
that
curb
doesn't
cut
have
here,
expensive antique Belgian curbing, that's, you know,
Yeah,
I
why
guess
do-
that homeowner's gonna have to, you know, rectify any changes.
Yeah, either no curb
Yeah.
cuts
Either
and then they
they're
put
gonna
it
have
in, or we stick it
Yeah.
somewhere and that's just
Yeah.
where it is.
I think the way the documents are read is that curb cuts or curb cut easements are required from that lot to the street.
Yes, I
To our
agree,
driveway.
I agree, yeah.
But Donald's to Donuts, whoever buys those houses,
You're gonna wanna move, of course.
no, they're gonna enter and exit off of Great Island Road.
Yeah, they're not, I find
And the
it
other
highly
guys-
unlikely that they're gonna wanna
And the other guy's gonna enter
have
to
their
flag
driveways
that.
out for that.
Yeah,
I'd rather have my address be, you know,
Maybe
100
not,
Long
maybe
Neck
not.
Point Road than
yeah.
2, I don't know what the name of the road's gonna be. It's not Great Island Road, because that's the other side.
It's not a road, it's a driveway.
Yeah, but I don't think we have to allow for the curb cut, but I don't think we have to police it.
Let me reread the record.
Because on their plan, they didn't have the curb cut, but on Lenny's plan, he had a curb cut.
They had a curb cut on the plan.
They noted specifically that they need to coordinate that with the
Yeah.
adjoining property owner, of course.
And the
So
one we
that's
saw was in the
a
middle
little bit
and
of an
they should go.
ongoing process.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll land the plane on that,
Yeah.
I'm confident that they'll land the plane.
Yeah, if we could figure out some language around it, I just don't wanna that's the only kind of concern, like, we don't wanna cut and then cut again in 2 years.
So I think the idea is field located with the approval of staff,
Yeah, something like that would be fine.
okay? We don't need to get involved. Same thing, in my opinion, same thing with the lights. If they show you the lights, when they come up with the lights in June of 2024, whatever it's gonna be, if they can, it's approved by staff, knock yourself out. Mike?
Yeah, and I would go with a style of lighting, right? Not a specific unit, like you said, that they're not tied into something. And then the one thing I don't think you mentioned is there's some cutting as well. They have to do cutting along a couple of the properties. I can't remember which one it is, but on
I mean, like excavation.
the excavation, yeah, yeah. And then they're removing some encroachments, which I
Yes.
think is important to note, that we're being good neighbors and taking stuff off the neighbor's property. I agree, Steve, with you. We shouldn't be dictating the materials of their sidewalks and things like that. I do like the idea that we're doing a feature, not a hump, just so Adam's bicycle can get in there.
That's it. I'm gonna come flying out of there someday and go down that hill and hit one of those bumps and land up in,
Right in the middle of the road.
yeah. And some little wife's kid's gonna do it. Amy, you're up.
I have a couple things. I hear you with regards to not dictating minutia with regards to light styles and model numbers, etc. However, we do make our applicants in general adhere to plans submitted and represented. And the things that I think are important that we need to be accurate on are things like, and I don't anticipate this to ever be a problem, but like they're gonna encounter value engineering challenges just like every other homeowner. And things that I don't want to get value engineered away are things like the walls on rebuilding those pillars based on those old stones, those dimensional mortar joints, utilizing those granite antique curbing. Those are things that we cannot let get value engineered out. I think those are really critical to making sure that the entrance of that jewel, our town jewel, is going to be an homage to what it was. So I think those are really, really important things that we want to make sure don't get value engineered out. And I don't know how we put that in the resolution. Then
I don't disagree with it, but remember, we don't care what it costs.
okay,
We don't care because of the hour cost.
I feel very important that they need to use those stones from those pillars and replicate those mortar joints and use those Belgian antique curves. Like that's important.
I agree with that.
And then the other thing that I think is important is, once it's
That goes
open,
into nature and character of the
yeah,
community.
Yeah.
I mean, so we can,
yeah.
right, it's in keeping with that style, that nature and character of that part of the town.
And then the other thing is, whether they have temporary parking, I don't know if that's at this application, but if there's access to it, there's gotta be a gravel pad, because people will drive in there, and they're gonna make their own parking. So, we're kidding ourselves to think that if we open it up, that people aren't gonna be driving in there and parking on grass and parking, so you throw in a temporary pad and tell them where they have to do it, because they're gonna do it.
It's strongly encouraged.
And I don't know what the extent of our purview is on that, but that's.
See, we all know that's the case. Like, I was thinking, if I'd take my father-in-law there, July 15th, and he wants to take a walk. The way it's designed, or the way the wording says that I remember reading, is that you gotta park at Parachute Point, and it's a nice 15-minute walk over to the beach.
And there's plenty of people that want a long walk that will do that.
Right, but if I want to
There
drop
are
off my
plenty of people
father-in-law,
that will
I'm
actually
gonna
do
drop
that.
him off at the front door of the stables,
Yeah.
go park the car, and then go back.
Because those people drive and park at Pear Tree and do the big loop of Long Neck. Instead of doing that, they'll park at Pear Tree and walk down and
Yeah.
walk and do the loop of Great Island. Those people that want a long walk, those will adhere to that.
Yeah, but the reason why
But there'll be plenty that won't.
But the reason why we do widen this driveway is for two-way traffic,
I get it, and when they get in there, they're gonna park on somebody's grass, somewhere,
So it's,
Strong encouragement.
yeah.
I think it's strong,
And I know that's.
because it's outside the boundaries of the application.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so wouldn't that be a subsequent application then, even if it's just for a pad,
It
if
could
throw in a
be.
gravel pad somewhere?
The application could come in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Exactly.
It's kind of the equivalent of a staging area on a construction site, a little bit, not exactly, but kind of, on this temporary nature, but those are my 2 cents.
You guys get to figure out how to put that on paper.
We'll have something for you next week.
Fantastic. That's
Maybe you could tie it into something, I don't know that needs to be in this application, but if you wanted to, an idea might be some type of parking area for the work, for the workers, the people who are gonna be doing this construction, wherever that is, how we always have a stockpile staging area and a silt fence around it, and whatever, you could work it in like that, could be the temporary spot.
And that stays, it doesn't get ripped up until
It stays as
till the
gravel or
transition
crushed stone or
process.
whatever the heck they put down there
Yeah.
to mitigate the mud and what have you. Something like that, you could work it in. I don't know that's needed, but
You might indicate our reliance on the rules that I understand have been promulgated recently
yeah.
that strictly prohibit driving up there. I understand your point,
Yeah.
but, we could say we're relying on those rules in the absence of any parking arrangement
Yeah.
that they'll be enforced.
Yeah, that quote that I came up with, I think, was on the front page of the newspaper.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Positive approval. All right, next item up for bid is the chairman's report. I actually took the time today to do a chairman's report because we have a little bit of time. So if you guys don't mind indulging me for 15 minutes. Sure. I got a few pages to go through.
Whose birthday is it today?
I haven't done birthdays in a while. I've been driving around and looking around and whatnot, so I went through the chairman's report. I was invited over to Darien BMW, Phase 1 and Phase 1A, which is the building and the car wash, or done. They moved all the operations of the service center over to the new building. The thing's absolutely awesome. It looks like something you'd see on TV. It's a state-of-the-art facility. The next thing they're gonna do is, I don't know if they applied or not yet, all those parking lots with the 17 doors, that's all they're gonna get knocked down. That's their next phase. Bird Coat opened, the chicken store. I was told that the sandwiches are really good and really spicy. My kid loves them. what I want to talk about is the stuff that we approved and we updated, and my father-in-law Angela wanted to make sure I told everybody about this too. He wanted to shout out tonight. Northeast Woodworking opened. That was a building that was Seymour's. They opened and sold, so we have a new business in town. All the state and traffic work was done at the corner of Monroe Avenue and West Avenue. All the signs are down. We used to say Selectmen, Monica, now that sign's done. And that's also done in advance of more dwelling units put on site. Keeping the same neighborhood, the subway and belt cleaners project is still under construction. If you go by there, it's a big pile of dirt. That's really just environmental remediation. The property was on the market for sale. It's not on the market for sale now. Jeremy, do you have any update on that, or that's?
No, I haven't heard anything new. To rebuild anything on the site would require commission approval.
Okay. In that same neighborhood, I think it's called Bill's Auto Body Shop, next to the Federal Pocket Park and the mobile gas station, is still for sale. That's been for sale for over a couple of years now. One thing I think was kind of fun, if you guys remember, we approved some lady's driveway on West Avenue near Ridgely Street. She widened the driveway so she could get her groceries to us. That's finally finished. They stopped and started. It looks nice. Hopefully the woman can get it out of her driveway. We did get a report today from Federal Realty, Darien Commons. The Bear Bar Restaurant, which is an end cap that faces Edgerton Street, is due to open in late April, early May. There's another store or another business called Sparkalicious, which is a kids' arts and crafts store. That should open in May. Cosmo's Bagels, which I guess is Cosmo Kramer out of Seinfeld. That's supposed to open in May. And there's another one, I don't know what it is. What's Zen Matha? I don't know what those guys.
Matcha.
What do they do?
It's a drink.
It's a drink.
It's a drink?
It's like a tea.
Oh, yeah?
Bunch of tea, sugar.
Okay. Those guys are gonna open in May. There's LOIs out for all the other spaces that are available inside Darien Commons. So the building is, the retail space or commercial is effectively fully leased. They're gonna try to announce some of those other tenants as soon as they can. As of today, there's only one apartment currently available in the entire project, which is 116. I don't know if that's a non-renewal or renewal, but there's only one apartment that's empty.
You're on Darien Commons now.
Yep, still on Darien Commons. 40 Heights Road, they're applying for a building permit to do all that site work in April, and that work should be done in the spring. At the same time, and Jeremy and I spoke about this, they're gonna reconfigure the parking lot that we already approved, where they cut off the entrance. When you come in, there's only one entrance. That work is gonna get done at the same time as when they do the 40 Heights Road work. And they're still working on the crosswalk. We asked them to do a crosswalk from 40 Heights Road over to Gregory's Coffee. There's some grade changes and road changes and sight lines that they're trying to deal with, but they're trying to figure that out. So people inside those two bank branches or whatever can walk across the street. The Equinox building work with the new roof and the screening was put out for bid. They have not gotten the bids back yet, and they don't have a schedule, but that is something that's in the works. Moving on to the next one, Palmer's. The steel is up for both buildings. I think in the middle portion is the parking garage. I don't think they've started the parking garage because that's just still doing.
They're working on the retaining wall in the back. Is the next thing they're working on.
They're working on the retaining wall in the back that holds back the neighbors. They had some issues, and according to Mr. Vaccaro Senior, John, that was one of the hardest engineering feats he's ever had to go through, and there's multiple engineers trying to make sure that thing is built properly. Moving over to Corbin, buildings 1 and 2, everybody knows done. What they're doing now is they're chipping away at the big rock that's next to I-95 that has to come out. It was behind the post office where all the cars were. That work is scheduled to be done on February 8th, which is 3 days from now or 2 days from now.
Doesn't look like 2 days is a soft close.
Soft starting. After they get that done, then they have to get some permit from the Connecticut DOT to have an encroachment on the post road so they can build a parking garage, which is underneath it. That's that one. The next one is a little bit of a question for Jeremy. Parklands, that's approved for 57 dwelling units.
Yeah.
Do we know
56
any
days.
updates on that?
I do not. As far as I know, when I spoke to them about a month ago, they're still planning on moving ahead sometime starting this year.
And the senior, Mr. Gillen, passed away. You're a tenant of the building. Do you know anything new?
I'd rather not say.
Okay, that's fine. We did, when Jay Klein was here a while ago, they was looking for an extension for that permit because he said that the ownership was in a state of flux, but I think Mr. Gillen was still alive at the time. The car wash, we talked about that. They have to, the car wash, then we drew it with application from us, but they're still going to the sewer commission?
They still have to go to the sewer commission. I expect that they'll go to the sewer commission. I think they're scheduled for March.
Okay. The Wells Fargo Bank branch in the center of town, that's a big old antique building. That is still on the market for sale. The asking price was $3.9 million. It went on the market in September. They're starting to accept bids now, but no one has won the bidding process.
Just FYI, I do think that building is architecturally a special building.
I agree. I bet you it might be landmark.
I-
The Union Trust Building.
The Union
I
Trust
hate
Building,
to
which
see that
then
go away.
went to First Union, and then it went to Wachovia, and now it's
Yeah.
Wells Fargo, and now it's empty.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
heard that
think-
CVS was a grocery store.
Yeah, it was Christie's. I heard that.
Great.
Yeah.
It was great at.
Yeah. So that building, the Wells Fargo building is priced at $187.
Special.
Anyone that I ever talked to looked at it said they were gonna convert it and make it into something. but
And not tear it down.
Not tear it down.
Yeah, I would hope, I got it.
That's not landmarked, right?
No, but surprisingly, few people have called. I would have expected more calls on that.
There's a ground lease attached to that you have to get around, and the ground lease doesn't have that much term left on it. And according to the offering documents, the drive-through ATM in the back is always supposed to stay there. So Wells Fargo's gonna lease back the
That's
drive.
deed
ATM.
restricted? That,
No, they just wanna buy it. I mean, you go around to a lot of shopping centers,
Yeah.
there's freestanding ATM in the
Okay.
parking lot, that's what they want. Pear Tree Point School, that was divided into 4 lots by, I think, developers Hans Mendes. The house was on the market for $18 million. Have any of those things ever moved?
Nope, I don't know what kind of interest level he's had, though it's not uncommon to not have a lot of interest level while something is constructed. Because,
And they- and they
it's not
started-
a simple transaction, it's a lot of, the legalities of it and whose money is put up to what degree becomes significantly different than a typical real estate transaction. So that's not uncommon, but from my understanding, it's fully available.
Has the foundations on the other 3 lots started at all? Nothing?
What's that?
The boat dock, I mean, it's otherwise not on the water, right?
That's on the backside, yeah.
The frontage is on.
The other one I think that was fun was we approved a pizza store at Good Wife Shopping Center. Is that thing ever open?
They just applied for the permits for it, I believe, so I assume they're gonna start the tenant fit up in February.
Okay. The other item I think is interesting is the Darien Housing Trust Fund is now funded again. There's about $195,000 in that fund, and that came from federal. When Vaccaro builds there, most of those money goes in there, or what I would call a stub unit. So if it's 16.5, they have to put a 0.5,
Yeah.
and that's the money that sits there. Vaccaro has to put a couple of shekels into that because I think he's got a stub unit. And anybody else? David Genovese is building all of his on site.
Not that we've approved it, but on Sedgwick,
Sedgwick.
they've got a stub unit in there.
Yep. They have what, 2.5? But remember, just for the record, that is our choice. We can
Yes,
say
absolutely.
on, off, give us cash.
Make it all
Yeah.
affordable.
We can do it any way we want. If all this, and then the other one that's in, we got it, I don't think it was seen it yet, we got an application, a pre-application, but we saw it tonight from, that's 2 Squab Lane. They have a plan that they want to build 16 units in a 2 or 3 story building that backs up to the train station. The plan they submitted, they want to merge lots that they own into one to get a bigger acreage to I think, soften the density. I met with them a couple of times here in Town Hall with pre applications, and I think they have, their architect is Granoff Associates out of Greenwich, he built in Wilton, downtown Wilton, and in downtown Fairfield next to the train station. So that's another one we're gonna see recently. So I did some quick math. If everything we've approved already, and some things like we talked about tonight, we have another 407 units in the hopper that could come to our town in the next few years. The Board of Education submitted something today for us. Did you see that yet? For parking? No?
No.
Jill told me she was going to submit something to you for something about parking. But that's pretty much it. Any questions ever for me? Feel free to ask. But I just wanted to update everybody on stuff that is going on around town.
They opened the nail salon at You Break, I Break, You Fix, You
Oh,
Break, I
Yeah.
Fix.
Yeah. So that's right by your office.
Yeah.
You can go there
That's
lunchtime.
Yeah, I get my nails done.
You do look good.
Great.
How's the state of the sushi place that's going on near Ernie's on Tokenie?
Yeah, what happened to that guy?
Are they open?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I haven't seen it.
They've got, I think they got the permits to.
Yeah, I saw them doing some work in there a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't sure if they opened it yet.
There's more restaurants in town.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Anything else you want?
Just 2 Squab Lane, is anything there now?
That's that White House.
Oh, it is.
Remember
Okay.
Amy's
Yep.
Avatacus restaurant once I'm gonna put a bakery in the ground floor and something
Yep.
else and
Got
all
it.
that stuff. It's just demo it. and start
That's been
from scratch.
vacant for some time.
Since,
Yeah.
It's got those nice stairs.
It's been available longer.
since before, that was part of a three-way application when they built Darien, Road Bank and Brooks Brothers. And that's 15 years. Before my time. Yeah.
It's about 20,
Really?
at least.
Yeah.
2006.
No, it was,
What's that, 15, 20 years ago, right now,
yeah. So we'll see that on the 23rd.
27th,
27th?
3 weeks from tonight.
Okay, cool. Director's report. Anything else, sir?
Next week's public hearing is going to be in the auditorium, accessory dwelling units. We've set aside a couple hours for that. We do have a number of members of the public who've shown interest. We've tried to get word out through a variety of sources, so you may see more news articles, First Selectmen's newsletter, Instagram posts, trying to get people to show up and hear what it's all about.
Okay. You still have contacts with PZ&H, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent a copy to the current chairman of PZ&H, so she can get the word out to people as well.
Fantastic. Okay. Upcoming meeting, February 13th and 27th. We just talked about 13th is going to be ADUs. And the other one that you mentioned.
27th is the continuation of 7 Sedgwick,
I will be out.
and Amy's out on that night. And then we'll have the informal conversation about 2 Squab Lane, and a couple other items that are sure to trickle in between now and then.
Okay. And the 13th is in the auditorium.
Yep, next week's in the auditorium. We'll see what kind of crowd we get, and we'll have a presentation, and then feedback and input from the public. I expect there'll be another hearing, because I assume the commission's gonna wanna get that feedback, figure out if changes are warranted, and then bring it back out to the public again.
Is Dave Katie going to be here?
Dave is gonna be there, and he's working on the presentation probably as we speak.
Okay. What other item, do we have to start thinking at all about the next town planning conservation?
We do, we put a number in the budget, capital budget, the Board of Selectmen. So far, so good. I've heard it's gone through, then it goes to the RTM. We expect to kick off the meetings on the town plan and select a consultant in the next 6 months. believe it
And
or
I
not.
heard Glenn Chalder did the last one, has retired. Been taking on
He's not
something.
taking on multi-year jobs anymore. And this
No.
is certainly a multi-year job.
Yeah, he was pretty good. Okay, with that, any other business? Good? Okay, next thing on the agenda is motion to adjourn. Mike makes a motion, looking for a second.
Seeing
That- it
the
doesn't have a
meeting
second.
stays
It
on.
doesn't have a second, guys.
Seeing
George
the
makes a
meeting
second.
continue.
I'll watch the second.
Thank you, Team 79.